My dad married a woman with 3 kids. Now they want me to raise them at 16. But when I refused and bought my own food, they threatened to kick me out of my own house. I'm 16 years old. I work part-time at a sporting goods store on weekends, and honestly, I don't know how much longer I'm going to endure this situation at my house before I completely explode. The thing is, it all started in a way that seemed totally normal. I mean, I've always been independent with my stuff, you know? But now my stepmother Stephanie literally wants me to be like the third parent to her kids, and I just didn't sign up for that. You know what I mean? Let me go back a bit so you understand the whole context. When I was like 12 years old, maybe 11 and a half, my mom got sick with cancer. It was horrible, honestly, because she went from being fine to being super sick in a matter of months, and suddenly my dad was at the hospital with her all the time, or working to pay the medical bills that were insane, like thousands and thousands of dollars. I stayed alone a lot, and basically had to learn to make my own meals because there was nobody else. At first I made super simple things, peanut butter sandwiches, cereal, that kind of stuff. But eventually I learned to cook basic things by watching YouTube videos. I remember the first time I made pasta with actual tomato sauce, I felt super proud, even though it turned out kind of watery if I'm being honest. My mom passed away when I was like 12 and a half, I think, or maybe almost 13. I don't remember the exact date now, but I know it was in summer because it was horribly hot the day of the funeral. After that, my dad kind of shut down emotionally, He worked all the time, and when he was home, he basically spent his time watching TV or sleeping. He never asked me if I had eaten or if I needed anything. He just assumed I was fine because, I guess, I never complained. I kept making my own lunches for school, my own dinners when I got home, washing my clothes, the whole thing. I became super self-sufficient, out of necessity more than choice, honestly. Things continued like that for about a year and a half, like my dad in his world and me in mine, basically living like roommates in the same house. And then he met Stephanie. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags from the beginning, but I was like 14 and honestly, I just wanted my dad to be happy again, Stephanie seemed nice at first, always smiling and asking me how school was going and that kind of thing. What I didn't know was that she had 3 kids from a previous marriage, twin boys about 6 years old who were super hyperactive and loud, and an 1-year-old daughter who was quieter but equally demanding in her own way. They got married super fast, like after dating for about 8 months, and suddenly our 2-person house became a 6-person house. It was a brutal change, honestly. Overnight, there were toys everywhere, constant noise, the twins running and screaming at 7 in the morning, and the 1-year-old daughter always needing help with homework or wanting to use the computer. I used to do my homework. But, well, I adapted. Basically, I locked myself in my room more and kept doing my thing. I still made my own lunches every morning before going to school. I'd get up around 6:30 to have time to make a sandwich and pack some fruit and maybe some cookies. Everything was relatively calm for about a year after they got married. Stephanie took care of her kids. I took care of myself. But then, like 6 months ago, things started to change. One morning I was in the kitchen making my lunch as always. It was a Tuesday, I think, and Stephanie came down with the twins still in pajamas and said to me, "Hey, since you're making your lunch, could you make lunches for the kids too? Right?" And I was like, "What?" I told her no, that I made my own lunch because it was my responsibility to take care of myself, but that her kids were her responsibility. She laughed like I had told a joke and said, "Oh, come on, don't be like that. We're a family now." I told her no. Again, finished making my lunch and went to school. I thought that was the end of it, But no. That night when I got home after school and my part-time job, back then I also worked Tuesdays and Thursdays, like 4 hours each day, my dad called me to the living room. Stephanie was sitting there on the couch with that victim face that I later learned she put on every time she wanted to manipulate a situation. My dad said to me, "Look, son, Stephanie told me you asked her for help this morning, and you refused." I literally couldn't believe what I was hearing. I said, "Wait, what?" She was the one who asked me to make lunches for her kids. I didn't ask her for anything. My dad kind of got uncomfortable and said, "Well, it doesn't matter who asked who for what. The point is that now we're a family and we should all help each other." I reminded him that I had been doing my own things for years, without asking anyone for help, that I worked to have my own money, that I bought my own food, with what I earned, because he basically never asked me if I needed anything. He got kind of defensive and said that was different, that now things had changed. I asked him how exactly my responsibilities had changed because of the fact that he had married someone who had kids, but he didn't answer me directly. He just said it would be nice if I helped out a bit more with the kids and then changed the subject. After that, Stephanie started with super obvious manipulation tactics. She'd tell the twins to ask me directly if I could make them lunch, and they'd come with their puppy dog faces saying, "Please, please, please, can you make us lunch?" And I'd tell them no, that their mom should make them lunch, and they'd run crying to Stephanie saying I was mean. She also started leaving the kitchen a complete mess in the mornings, like dirty dishes everywhere, crumbs on the counter, spilled milk, and then when I'd come to make my lunch, there was no space to work, and I had to clean first. It was super obvious what she was doing, you know? Trying to make my life impossible so I'd give in. One day I came home and Stephanie was going out the door with the twins. She said to me, "Ah, perfect. You got here just in time. I need you to stay with the girl." That's what she called her one-year-old daughter. She didn't even use her name when she talked to me about her. She has math homework and needs help. And I said, "I can't. I have my own homework, and plus I have to go to work in an hour." She got mad and said my priorities were wrong, that family should come first. I reminded her it wasn't my daughter and it wasn't my responsibility to help her with her homework. That's what her parents were for. She left, slamming the door, and leaving me there with the girl who was looking at me super uncomfortable because obviously she had heard everything. Honestly, I felt a bit sorry for the girl. I mean, it wasn't her fault, her mom was like that, but I also wasn't going to let them manipulate me, using the kids. The following weeks were basically a cold war. Stephanie stopped talking to me directly, but made passive-aggressive comments all the time, like, "How nice it must be to only worry about yourself," or, "Some of us have real responsibilities." My dad said nothing, literally nothing, as if nothing weird was happening in the house. Then we got to breaking point number 1, which was like 3 months ago. It was a Saturday night and I was in my room doing homework when Stephanie knocked on my door. She came in without waiting for an answer, which I hated, by the way, and sat on my bed. She told me we needed to talk seriously. Basically, she gave me this whole speech about how I was selfish and didn't understand what it meant to be part of a family, that when you marry someone who has kids, those kids become siblings, and siblings help each other. I told her that first, nobody asked me if I wanted siblings. Second, that helping each other as siblings didn't mean I had to be a third parent to her kids, and third, that she and my dad were the adults and responsible for taking care of those kids, not me. She got furious, like I had never seen her that angry. She told me I was a spoiled brat and had no idea how hard it was to raise 3 kids practically alone because my dad worked so much. I told her that was her problem, not mine, that she decided to have 3 kids and marry my dad knowing he worked a lot. I told her I already had enough taking care of myself, going to school, working, and doing my homework. She yelled that if I wasn't going to contribute to the family, then I shouldn't expect the family to contribute to me. I didn't really understand what she meant by that at the time, but I found out soon. My dad talked to me the next day. It was super awkward because he clearly didn't want to be having that conversation, but Stephanie had obviously pressured him. He told me Stephanie was right that I should help more, that I lived in that house and ate that food and used the electricity and water and all that. I reminded him that he was my father, and it was his legal responsibility to provide me those things until I turned 18. I also told him that I bought my own food with the money I earned working, that I literally had my own shelf in the fridge and my own space in the pantry with things I had bought. He was quiet for a while and then just said to try to get along better with Stephanie, that she was stressed and I could make things easier if I cooperated a little. After that conversation, things escalated super fast. Stephanie started expecting me to not only make lunches, but also cook dinners for the whole family. One night I got home from work at 8, dead tired and hungry, and found Stephanie in the living room watching TV with the kids. She asked me what I was going to make for dinner. I said I was going to make pasta for myself, my food, with my ingredients. She said, "Perfect, make enough for everyone." I said no, that if she I wanted dinner for her kids, she should make it herself. She started screaming that I was a horrible, selfish person, and what kind of person lets small children go hungry. I yelled back that her kids weren't my responsibility and to stop trying to put that weight on me. My dad arrived in the middle of that fight. He worked late shifts sometimes, and found the two of us yelling in the kitchen with the three kids crying in the living room. Without even asking what had happened, he told me to calm down, not to yell at Stephanie, that she was my stepmother and deserved respect. I told him that respect was earned, and she hadn't done anything to earn mine, that she had just spent a year trying to turn me into her free babysitter. He said that was ridiculous, that Stephanie was just trying to integrate the family. I told him no, that what she was trying to do was saddle me with responsibilities that weren't mine so she could have an easier life. Things reached an unsustainable point when, 2 weeks after that, they had what was basically an intervention with me. One Friday night when I got home from work, they were waiting for me in the living room, both sitting very seriously, without the kids in sight. My dad started by saying they had been talking a lot about the situation and had come to some decisions. Stephanie continued, saying that if I was going to keep living in that house, I was going to have to start contributing significantly to the family, which meant making lunches for the kids at least 3 times a week, helping with the girls' homework twice a week, cooking dinner for the whole family twice a week, and babysitting 1 Saturday a month so they could have date nights. I stood there, staring at them like they had gone completely crazy. I told them that wasn't going to happen, that I wasn't their employee or their babysitter or a substitute parent for those kids. My dad said that if I wasn't willing to be part of the family, then I couldn't expect the benefits of being part of the family. I asked him what exactly that meant, and Stephanie said, "It means if you're not going to help with the kids, then you can't eat our food or use our things." I said, "Perfect, no problem. I've been buying my own food for months anyway." I think they expected me to give in or get scared or something, but I was fed up, you know? The next day I went to the supermarket with my paycheck from work and bought everything I needed, basically filled my fridge, shelf, and my pantry space. I bought my own plastic plates and my own plastic utensils, so there would be no confusion about what I was using. I put my name with permanent marker on everything. Stephanie saw me doing that and said something sarcastic about it being pathetic, but I ignored her. The first real test of this new situation was Sunday night. I had worked all day, got home around 7, and was making grilled chicken with rice and vegetables for myself. The twins were at the kitchen table watching me, and asking what I was cooking, saying it smelled good. Stephanie came in and saw what I was doing. She asked me if I had made enough for everyone. I told her no, that I had made food for one person, for me. She said, "You're cooking on my stove, using my electricity, and you're not going to share anything." I reminded her that she had said that if I didn't help with the kids, I couldn't use her things. So basically, she had established those rules, not me. She went hysterical. She started screaming that I was a horrible person. How could I be eating while her kids hadn't had dinner yet? I told her that wasn't my problem, that she was the mother, and it was her job to feed them. My dad arrived at that moment. He had gone out to buy something, and she ran to him crying, saying I had insulted her and didn't want to share food with hungry children. He looked at me and asked if that was true. I told him yes, that I had made food for myself with my ingredients and I wasn't going to share because they had made it very clear that I wasn't part of the family unless I fulfilled a bunch of responsibilities that weren't mine. My dad looked super frustrated, like he was grabbing his head with his hands, and told me why did I have to be so difficult? Why couldn't I just help a little? I told him this wasn't about helping a little, that they wanted me to basically be a third parent, and that wasn't fair. Stephanie screamed that if I felt that way, then clearly I didn't want to be part of the family. I said, "You know what? You're right. If being part of this family means sacrificing my time, my money, my energy to raise kids who aren't mine while I'm still a minor myself, then I don't want to be part of this family." The silence after I said that was brutal. The twins were crying. The 1-year-old had come downstairs and was standing at the kitchen entrance with wide eyes. Stephanie's face was red and she was shaking with rage, and my dad just looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Finally, Stephanie said, "Fine. If that's how you feel, then you're on your own. Don't expect anything from us." I said, "Perfect," and took my plate to my room. That night, I cried for the first time in years. Honestly, not because of them specifically, but because of the whole situation, because of how much my life had changed since my mom died, because of the fact that my dad had chosen Stephanie and her ridiculous demands over me. But I also felt relieved in a way, because I had finally set my boundaries clearly and hadn't given in. The next morning was Monday, school day. I got up at 6:30 as always, went down to the kitchen, and Stephanie was already there with the twins. She looked at me with so much hatred, I felt like it was burning me. She said, "Tonight when you get home from work, you better make dinner for this family, or you can start looking for another place to live." My dad was standing behind her saying nothing, just nodding. I told them I wasn't going to make dinner for them, that they could make their own dinners like the functional adults they supposedly were. Stephanie took a step toward me, and for a second I thought she was going to hit me. But my dad stopped her. She just said, "You're going to regret this. You'll see. It's been like 3 weeks since that final confrontation. I still live in the house, but basically it's like I'm a ghost. I don't talk to Stephanie at all. My dad avoids me, and the kids have already learned not to approach me. I buy my own food, cook only for myself, wash my own clothes, basically live completely independently within the same house. It's super weird and tense all the time. Stephanie makes passive-aggressive comments constantly, like, how nice it must be to have no worries, or, some of us actually care about our family, but I ignore her. Last Friday, they had another conversation with me. Basically, it was my dad and Stephanie saying this situation couldn't continue, that I had to decide if I wanted to be part of the family with all the responsibilities that implied, according to them, or if I preferred to leave when I turned 18. I told them I was going to stay until I turned 18 because it was my legal right to live there and receive support from my father until then, but that I wasn't going to change my position about their kids. My dad looked defeated, and Stephanie looked furious. She said, "Fine, but don't come crying when you're completely alone and nobody supports you." I told her I was already used to being alone, that I'd been that way for years. Honestly, I don't know what's going to happen. There's like a year and a half left until I turn 18 and can legally leave. I'm saving all the money I can from my job so I can rent a room or something when that time comes. I know my relationship with my dad is probably basically destroyed, which hurts more than I'd like to admit, but I'm also not going to sacrifice my sanity and my time to make Stephanie happy. I didn't sign up to be a parent to her kids. I didn't ask to have a stepmother who thought she could use me as a free babysitter. And I definitely don't deserve to be treated like I'm the bad guy in the story just because I set reasonable boundaries. Some days I wonder if I'm being too harsh, if I should give in a little just to keep the peace. But then I remember everything that happened. All the times I tried to explain my position reasonably and was ignored or attacked, and I know I'm doing the right thing. I'm 16 years old. I should be worrying about school, about my friends, about normal teenager stuff. I shouldn't be fighting legal battles about whether I have to raise someone else's kids. So I guess this is my life now for the moment. Living in the same house as my dad and his new family, but completely separated from them, counting the days until I can leave and start my own life for real. It's not ideal, not at all, but at least I'm keeping my principles and my dignity. And honestly, that has to be worth something, right?